Secret Invasion is now streaming on Disney Plus, all 6 episodes of it, and I'm going to be talking full spoilers about the series. This is going to have that immediately, so if you haven't seen Secret Invasion yet, you might want to check that out first and then come back and watch this video. In this series, Nick Fury has to deal with a Skrull invasion that is taking place on the planet Earth, and basically it means that powerful individuals could not actually be human beings. They could be aliens who are shapeshifters, and they could be corrupting other individuals in order to cause something truly devastating to the human race. And so Fury has to figure out what that might be and cut it off before it, can get really, really much worse. Now, this is a show that I've reviewed the first 2 episodes of on my channel. In that video, I said I was very impressed with Secret Invasion, the first 2 episodes at least. I was very intrigued by the setup. There were a few things that it did which I did not expect, and I was genuinely excited to see where it would go because it was in the vein of something like, say, Captain America the Winter Soldier, which is considered to date one of the best MCU projects ever. And so I was very interested in how they would carry that through. But the thing about the Disney Plus series so far, most of them at least some of them seem to have done this better than others, is that there is this case of being way too limited in the story that you have to tell. Now, I understand that you're probably thinking, but it's a limited series. There's only so much story you can tell. Okay, here's the thing. When you're telling a limited story in a limited series, sure, you could have it connect to another movie that's coming up or something like that. And this one does. It does connect to the fact that Nick Fury is going to be in the Marvels, which is in November. Okay. But at the same time, when you start off a limited series and when you start off a story run, the whole idea is that you're supposed to also give viewers a payoff. A certain promise is made that, all right, you've tuned in to watch this show. By the end of this show, we promise to give you this, this, and this. And here's the 3-4 beats that we're absolutely going to cover. And so you're thinking, okay, that makes sense. Now it comes down to how you're going to cover it. Now, from that particular basic definition of a limited series, you could say that, yes, you got a beginning, middle, and end to the story arc, which is presented in this show. That being said, is it a great story arc? Not particularly. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it tries to take way too long in trying to make anything matter, and then it comes down to quite literally the last 15 minutes of the entire series for any of it to actually pay off, and at which point things are already done. It's already too late. And unfortunately, the whole show suffers as a result of it. The first 2 episodes I really liked. I even enjoyed episode 5 to a degree. I thought it was one of the better ones. But then episodes 4, and the finale, not so much. I think this is where the show just completely fizzles out. And it doesn't help that every other episode seemed to have this cliffhanger thing with character deaths that really felt abrupt. Like, it didn't feel like any of these characters who we've lost in this series had to essentially go the way that they suddenly did in this, universe. Like in the first episode, we have Maria Hill's death, which is a big moment. It really did shock a lot of people. And Maria Hill's been here since the first Avengers movie. And so suddenly that happening was a big turning point. It's like, okay, no one is safe. All right, interesting. But then we did it again in episode 3 with this moment where Emilia Clarke is fatally shot, but it turns out that she's okay because she took some extremis, the stuff from Iron Man 3, so she's fine. But then episode 4 is Talos dying. Ben Mendelsohn is out of the game in the MCU, which is another shame because he's one of the best parts of this section of the storytelling in the MCU. But he's gone too. And it became this weird gimmick after a while. It was like, okay, we have nothing else interesting going on. The episode's just going along as it is. And then suddenly a death happens and then we have to, keep someone on the hook. I'm not really sure if that totally works after a while, especially because it doesn't feel like it absolutely, needed to happen. Or if you are going to have a character death, at least make it mean a little bit more. It just happens so suddenly and so anticlimactically. I don't know. maybe you could make the argument that these are not major characters, but at the same time, we've been seeing them for more than a decade, especially Maria Hill, so I don't know. That's just my personal take on that. But there is a show in here which is about Nick Fury not being the agent he used to be, and essentially he's having to deal with the fact that he's getting up in his years. Things have changed considerably since the snap with Thanos happened. He disappeared, he came back, he had an existential crisis, he went to space. Now that he's back, it's affected him to a point where he's no longer the Nick Fury that he used to be. And every character in this show makes at least 2 to 3 points about this over and over again. That he's not the agent that he used to be. He's not the Colonel Fury that he used to be. Okay. Now, this show is actually awesome because it actually deals with the stuff that he's going through, and essentially it's him trying to regain his former glory, and it means he's taking a lot of hits, he's making a lot of mistakes, he's having to deal with some personal stuff that has affected him. This stuff is so good that I wish that this was the show, because this is clearly the show that they wanted to make. And I wish they'd gone to that more, and it leads to some great stuff. I think Samuel L. Jackson's great in those sequences. I think he's great throughout the entire series. I think the acting, all of it is sublime. Like, I don't have any issues with that. Like, they all did a really good job. I think King's Ben-adir as Gravik was really fun. I thought Emilia Clarke as Gaia was great. I thought Ben Mendelsohn as Talos was awesome. I think Olivia Colman as Sonia was kind of the scene stealer. I enjoyed everybody's work in here. And like I said, there are things that are fun in it. Like I said, all the stuff with Fury's, legacy, really, really solid. The show itself, it's visually solid, for the most part. I would say it looks good. It's well shot. It's got all of the technical aspects, pretty well padded down. That's fine. That's not an issue that I have with it. My issue is really the storytelling. Because, this is where the show just suffers so immensely. And it just left me frustrated because the promise of what could have been a really great show turns into something that it's not quite that. Even in the aspect of Fury's legacy, there's a whole conversation about how much he wanted to do for the Skrulls, and he made that promise at the end of Captain Marvel. But then they haven't really lived up to that, and so that's why there's a bit of an extremist group which has come out of that, which is like, all right, fine, you're not doing anything for us, now we're pissed. Okay, that's interesting. Doesn't really have that kind of depth as much as it should, though. It doesn't really have that kind of effect that I wish it did. All right, there's a couple of scenes that come out of it, like I said, dialogue moments, which are really impressive, but that's really about it. It doesn't have that thrill factor that it really could have. And so I find myself going up and down in terms of things that I did like about it, things that I didn't like about it. But I can honestly say that this is maybe my least favorite MCU project. And sadly, it upsets me saying this, in about 10 years or so. I'm not even joking. I enjoyed some of the more dividing stuff recently more than this, like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, or Thor Love and Thunder especially, or even Quantumania. These are things that I know have gotten very varied responses, but I would honestly watch any of those over Secret Invasion, because I just feel like at least in those cases you get something with it. It could have been a great show, it could have even been a very good show, but it turns out to be a show that's just okay. And it also has the big CGI finale, which is completely random. It comes out of absolutely nowhere, and it doesn't, again, feel very warranted. It basically turns Emilia Clarke into a super Skrull, where she has every Avenger's power, which basically makes her, I guess, the most powerful character in the entire MCU now. It also has a moment towards the finale where it teases the show it could have been, and it just breaks your heart because that show sounds like the best thing. And it basically says, you know what, this order which has been given by the president because Gravik tries to attack him at one point and then he ends up in the hospital. When he eventually finds out that the Skrulls are a thing because Rhodey, Don Cheadle, turns out to be a Skrull in this one. Basically, his entire statement is, we are coming for the Skrulls, we're gonna hunt them all down. And immediately, Fury later on is like giving him a call in the next scene, like, your order is crazy because this is some one-term president stuff. What you've done is basically you've got every human turning against, the Skrulls, sure, but you've got actual humans being killed now because they can't tell the difference. It's led to a mass panic across the globe. This is so insane, and this is something that would have made a really politically powerful show to make for the MCU. Something would have been very different for the MCU. And it shows you 30 seconds of that before Fury is like, well, I want out of this. And then he just goes back to space and, with his wife, who's also a Skrull because of a whole thing in the past where the actual woman he loved died. But anyway, so I guess they got their happy ending, and now we'll see them in November with the Marvels. It's a show that started off with so much promise, with 2 really great episodes in my opinion, and then it had one solid one in 5, but then 3, 4, 6 especially really fumbled it all up. And I feel like by the end of it, I didn't feel like we absolutely needed the story like this. Maybe there might be something more down the line with it, but I don't know when, I don't know how, but I guess we'll have to see. I'm gonna give Secret Invasion a C+. Like I said, there's good stuff, there's some not good stuff. That's why I'm going to keep it to a C+. But it is easily my lowest rated MCU thing since a long time, which is kind of a shame, really. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and happy streaming to y'all.